talk doesn't have a Z in it. Hello and welcome to the Part-Time Gamers, the gaming podcast for people with full-time lives. I'm Serenex, clocking in with my good friends 9 of 12.
Happy New Year!
And that one weirdo.
Hey everybody, good to see you. I'm so glad I'm sticking to my resolution of having my camera on for every show of the Part-Time Gamers.
Well,
Woo-woo!
Honestly, most of the time you do have your camera on. It's just thanks Utah. Internet is being fussy apparently, but glad we're able to get you on audio at least.
Indeed. Everything else is on strike here in Utah right now. I don't know if you guys have heard. Quick little gee whiz news from Utah. So Park City, Utah is a very renowned place. It's become over, especially the past decade, but for many years, a very renowned ski place for the hoity-toity types.
Yeah.
And the ski patrol is on strike because they won't even get paid like a decent living wage. These are guys who camp out on the mountain to save other people's butts. Yeah. And they won't get paid. The strike is now in its 10th day, but because they're not there, the wait is up to 5 hours for one go to get up the mountain and down.
Jeez.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's lengthy.
Yeah, especially in Park City because it's not
what you pay.
Yeah.
Your lift pass and everything else, and you might get to go once with the daylight hours now.
Yeah.
And we are creeping very soon. And I'm one of those people, I want things to be okay. I want them to turn out okay. But I'll take a little chaos while I'm at it. So I kind of hope this actually happens. One, because I don't ski. I can't have fun in an emergency condition wearing pink puffy pants and poles. Sorry, I'm just not fun. But two, Sundance is coming up in about 2.5 weeks. Sundance Film Festival? Yeah.
Yeah.
The mayhem. Ooh.
Yeah.
I feel like.
And this further reinforces the fact that I hate money. Money is just terrible.
Amen.
Yeah.
Park City's become very isolated due to money and the people who were there. Still a cool place to hang out for the most part, but 10 years ago was so different. Even with the rich hoity-toity types there, it's gotten very different. So that's fine. I'll just look on the news and go.
Yeah.
Another one of my old hometown bars burned down this morning in Buffalo.
Jeez.
Within 6 months, on the same street, next door to the old Pink, Mulligan's Brick Bar burned down.
That's nuts. The fact that you said another.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so apparently you just aren't allowed to go to bars anymore, especially if you want them to exist.
Well, it's not like I get up there very often. I'm not the arsonist.
Yeah. So this is already. It's just.
I'm going to apply for assistance in social services this week. So.
Hey.
Life is great.
Yeah.
But I did Sean and I raised over $200 on the New Year's Eve streamathon for Children's National Network.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. We did golf with friends for the Diamond Club streamathon this over New Year's, and I played very poorly later on Helldivers during the night, really badly.
It's okay. You did better than I did at golf with friends. You and Weremole both beat me. Weremole was apologizing to me Friday night at game night, I'm sorry, I was about to fall asleep. I was so bad. I'm like, you still beat me. I'm not competitive. It's fine. We had a great time.
That's the problem.
We understand.
That's the thing is I get super competitive, to the point where me and Red Fraggle, Amy Robinson, we developed what we're referring to as the TMS Title League, where because we can make anything competitive, we are giving points to people who succeeded making titles for TMS. So
Oh boy.
That's how competitive I get.
Jeez Louise.
But yeah, it was
See,
a
that
lot of
makes me
fun.
want to start like doing it just to screw with
Oh,
you.
please.
Really,
It'd be
I don't
hilarious.
care about winning.
Like, I do care about winning to a certain degree, but I'm probably not going to.
Weird.
Because, yeah, well, no, I don't know.
I don't submit very often, but when I do,
Yeah, I think it was,
I'm petty. I don't care if I win. I just want others to lose.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's like,
I'm a grumpy butt like that. Like if I'm terrible at it when they crash and burn for like wanting to excel, and it's like, ha, that's what you get for dreaming.
but yeah, like I
Burn the
actually, I would
atmosphere.
have done really good if we had started on Monday, because I think Monday I had like 7 titles. Because I was still at home, so I was on my computer writing titles with the keyboard, and there was also like no one else in the chat. So I kind of,
See, that's the thing with me. It's too much trouble because I generally watch on my TV
yeah,
and I chat with my phone. And now that they're on YouTube, having to go out to, well, I mean, Talia made that great app so I can use Bang S, but going out to vote, and
yeah,
I feel like if I'm not voting, I shouldn't participate. And
yeah. That's
I just
again
don't care enough because I'm not competitive.
true.
Unless I think of
True.
a really, really good one, I don't care.
Yeah, but
Yeah, that's what you get for not dreaming. Ha!
But you are good at it. You are good at it.
I have my moments. All right. So we're gonna be this new year. Going to be doing a little things a little bit different. Been switching up a couple segments on the show. So normally we would be going to water cooler talk, bringing an article, going through all that. We're going to be switching it up a little bit. We're going to be going back to work right away, talking about our game. And then we're going to finish off our show with a topic, a single topic of discussion for the three of us, and to make that our water cooler talk at the end of the show. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and get back to work and start talking about our game.
Morning break is over. Morning break is over.
Get that right into it. Just back to work. Thanks, Elon.
All right.
I mean, you might want to, while you tell what game we're going to talk about, also mention what the theme is this month.
Yep, that's
That's
what
a
I'm
great
going to start
theme.
off
I love
with.
it.
So
Okay.
this month we're going to be talking, because, again, New Year. One thing that is pretty common for New Year's is making choices. So our theme for this month is going to be choices matter. So we're going to be going over another thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing this every week. We've decided that we're going to not do the game nights the last week, and we are going to do another additional game each month with that. So, but we're going to be starting off with one of the games that's kind of, to a certain degree, pioneered this choices matter genre at least in the last decade or so. And we're going to be talking about Until Dawn. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the Until Dawn remake. And what is different about it, where I think it excels, where it's been considered a failure, all that jazz. And just discuss everything about this. Developed by Ballistic Moon, published by PlayStation Publishing. It's currently $59.99 on PlayStation and Windows via Steam. Now that last part, though, is a pretty big deal. The fact that it's available on Windows. So a little bit of background for those who are unfamiliar with the title Until Dawn. The original came out on PS4 in 2015. And it has remained a PlayStation exclusive since then. So there has not been anywhere else you could play this game except PlayStation, up until the remake, where they released it for Windows. So one other thing before we get too far into this, we are going to be talking spoilers, and we'll be talking about story elements and things like that. And this is a very heavily story-driven game. So if you have not played this and you still want to, and do not want to be spoiled, go play it, come back, because we're going to be talking about story stuff here. So again, this game kind of pioneered, at least in the last decade, this whole kind of uptick in the choices matter genre, because there are a lot of choices that you have to make through this game. And That being said, the somewhat ironic thing that I have about this game is honestly the choices don't matter a whole lot. When at least when it comes to the story, specifically the story. Because the story pretty much always goes from A to B to C to D and so on and so forth throughout the chapters. It basically there's a little bit of variation with the endings, but ultimately the story still goes to the same place. Where the choices really come into play is who lives and who dies. And there are some pretty brutal choices and things that happen in this game. To let's start from the beginning. That's probably a good place to start. So it starts off. You have the one thing I do really one point that is very different from the remake and the original is this intro segment. Like the first 10 or 15 minutes of the game is actually pretty different. In the original, it was much more condensed. They expanded it. In the remake, gave it a little bit more emotional impact. Basically, it's a bunch of these like college age kids who are out in this ski resort. That one of the guys, his parents own the resort, so that's why they're able to go up there each year or whatnot. And a bunch of them decide to play a prank on one of these two sisters. I believe I can't remember if it's Beth or Hannah. It's Hannah.
Well,
Yeah, Hannah.
Reno.
Yeah,
That they played the prank on. They're both sisters,
yeah, Hannah and Beth are the sisters.
right?
They play the prank on Hannah. Oh,
Yes.
and by slipping her this note from one of the other guys that she apparently has this huge crush on, and leads her on thinking that they're gonna, things will happen between them. Well,
Mike.
yeah, and so she goes into the room with Mike in there, and everyone else is like hidden in closets and behind doors and stuff like that. And she starts unbuttoning her top, and that's when they like come out and say, "Ha ha, it's all a joke, yeah," that type of thing. And in the original, with the cinematography that they had in the original, it didn't really have as much of an impact, I think. Which is why they extended it in the remake and gave it more of that cinematic impact with like the long slow shots and everything of her and of the people's reactions and everything to really show that this is more devastating to her than they think it is.
Yeah, I have to say too, they did a really good job with her character design. I don't know what it is about because they're very tropey. These
Yeah.
characters are so tropey and so stereotypical. Like like the jock and the popular one, and the whatever, and the bitchy one who shops on Rodeo and blah blah blah. But Hannah was, and they were like picking on her for just kind of being, oh my god, like Mike would ever like her because he's popular.
Yeah.
But the way the character looked was, she was very pretty. She was but very girl next door. Like she was relatable. It's like the only reason, like her overreaction did make more sense in that way that they set that up.
Yeah. Yeah, and then so after this embarrassment, she goes running out of the cabin that they're in, and her sister Beth goes after her, and eventually, like they start hearing these weird noises out in the woods. They start seeing, like Beth tries to go through this one cabin and it just spontaneously lights on fire. They start seeing flames shooting in the woods. They, it's just this spooky stuff. And they finally meet up in the woods, Beth and Hannah, and they hear something basically running towards them from what they can tell. So they start running away and they end up getting to a cliff. And in the process of trying to see what they think is chasing them, and they're slowly backing up. They fall over the cliff, and Beth is able to grab onto a root and onto Hannah's wrist and holding her up. And you see a couple more flames fly about over the side of the cliff, and then this mysterious figure comes down and starts trying to reach to Beth. And this is where one of the first major choices comes into play, which actually doesn't matter at all. Beth has the option of either letting go of Hannah and trying to reach up to grab the guy's hand, or just basically just keep holding on to the root.
branch. Okay.
Was it? Yeah, it was. You could either let go of Hannah and try to reach up, or you could, hold on to the root, or you could just do nothing. Like there's always the option of just doing nothing, and that usually does have a different outcome. Again, with this being such an important story beat, there actually isn't any difference. Even if you let go of Hannah and try to reach up to grab the guy's hand, the root breaks and Beth falls to her death too.
Yeah.
Oh. So, and that's the beginning of this game. That's like the genesis of what happens in this game, is this event of Hannah and Beth. Mysterious, like no one knows what happened to them. Because no one was around them. No one's found the bodies or anything like that. So they just, to everyone else, they just disappeared.
I do say it's a weird intro because it takes like good. I think it was. I looked at the time in the playthrough I was watching. It was like 19 minutes in when this happens, and so you've been playing this game and making some, little choices like, do I wake Josh up when I hear a noise?
Yeah.
Or when my friends play prank on me, because you're playing Hannah to begin with, and running which way you run in the woods and this and that, and which way you shine your light. So it's like you think you're playing, and then all of a sudden
They're
dead.
just die. Yeah.
Yeah.
They just
It's
fall
like,
off a cliff.
well, that was a short game, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing that I will definitely give the remake, like one thing that people are not disputing in the remake is the improved graphics. It's like the difference, like it's almost 10 years of difference in advanced graphics. So the visuals definitely
Still
look
pretty uncanny though.
Yeah, but not as much as the old one. Like then again, because the old one was a little bit older, it's made. Yeah. Anyway, visually, it's much better, I think. Oh, and just especially that fall, that hit that Beth takes on the way down. Oh, it's like in the original one, it's like, okay, she like falls on a rock and then tumbles over. It's like in this one, you can like.
Oh.
It's brutal. She gets
zooming in on her eye.
Yeah.
It's crunchy. Yeah.
Yeah. That fall that Beth takes, like just snapping her spine on that rock. Oh, yeah, it's pretty impactful. Sorry, 1 second. I have one of my kids here.
Hello. Yeah, that definitely gets the attention of the audience with that kind of intro. And it's like game night, Rachel McAdams. Oh, she died. You know?
Oh, yeah, it was just a brutal hit. And I definitely think that was much more impactful in the remake. But yeah.
That was good.
Yeah. It wasn't even intentional, but I made it intentional. Anyway, so that's the events that take place in the prologue. The real events of the game take place another year later, and where one of the brother of the two sisters, what's his name? Not Mike. Josh. Yeah, he invites everyone back for kind of like a pseudo memorial and just get everyone back together type situation. And
wait, I don't think you can leave out the shrink because
that's
the transition.
Yeah, that's true.
Between the prologue and the game.
Yeah, you have this psychiatrist played by Peter Stormare, who is, you don't know who exactly is there, who he's talking to, but Also, a little bit like this is going to be. This is a spoiler. Well, we've already said this is spoilers. Oh, so the thing is, he's not real. As well, in a sense, he's real, but we'll get. No, I don't want to spoil too much because that's a
It's
pretty big point
complicated.
in the end. But yeah, he like keep in mind that this guy is not actually real. He's a figment of this guy's imagination. But what's interesting about those elements, those little interstitials with the psychiatrist, is the choices that you make actually do alter the gameplay a little bit. It's not huge amounts, but it does like start like there's segments where he has
Well,
to
it
like
seems
go ahead.
it seemed really obvious to me that those choices were going to affect things that happen in the game. Because
Yeah.
it's a lot of like again tropey stuff about seeing a psychiatrist or whatever, where look at this image and which scares you more,
Yeah.
and this image and this image, and which makes you more uncomfortable and why, and then repeating them and narrowing it down. It's like, okay, well, if I keep saying the thing I'm most scared of is the same thing, that's going to show up later. Like,
Yeah.
seemed
Yep.
pretty obvious to me.
Yeah, you pretty much nailed it. Like, there's one segment where he literally says, gives you two images, like which one are you more afraid of? And it's like scarecrows or clowns or stuff like that. And if you keep picking the same
Snakes or
thing,
rats.
yeah, if you keep picking the same thing, it's like there's certain jump scares, where it'll be that thing. Like and it will actually change. Like there's like it'll change between a scarecrow or a clown mask or something like that. So in subtle ways, those choices do still affect different small elements in the game. But again, over the overarching story, again, that's the one thing that's kind of ironic is the overarching story in this game doesn't change. Again, it's just a matter of who lives and who dies by the end of it. That's really the big difference with the ending. Although they have added a new ending, another ending for the remake, which you have to do some very specific things in the story to get the special ending. But it takes place like another year afterwards or something like
Grasping
that.
for replayability. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that is one thing that does kind of suck about this game is it once you play through it and you kind of understand what choices actually matter, what that kind of stuff. There's not really a whole lot of replay value to it. And this game is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of like if you're trying to get every little collectible and everything, probably around 10 hours. So that is something to keep in
Yeah, I
mind
think
about
it
it.
only has that kind of value for completionists.
Yeah. So that's one of the reasons why, even though I really do appreciate this game and really do, yeah, I guess appreciate it for what it is, I haven't bought it myself because I've already watched it now multiple times. I'm the kind of person that I like to research things before I play anything. And unfortunately, with this being such a story-driven narrative game, doing any kind of research on it is like, okay, you know what's going to happen. So I just, at this point, I'd rather just watch someone else play it.
I feel like there's real missed opportunities too for making more choices or making them seem like they matter, or there's a lot. I have to say I was disappointed in so many things. Like I thought it would be scarier. Like the
Yeah.
only real scary stuff was jump scares, and I'm not super
Yeah.
prone to those. And the whole totem thing, uh, uh,
So
like the way they set that up, the characters every once in a while they find a little totem, and they look at it, and you can find like a premonition. Ooh, and it shows a little cutscene of something's going to happen later in the game. But I don't think it helps you avoid the way they're stuck in any of it. And your character, after you see this thing, and you're usually with someone else, you just put it back down and keep walking.
Yeah.
Like there's no effect to what's going on, and it's so weird. Like we
Yeah.
just say, dude, I just saw this thing, or check this out, holy shit. I just saw you like fall to your death, ripped apart by something already. Like
Yeah.
you just put it back down, keep going to find
Yeah.
your girlfriend's purse. Like what is like no.
Yeah. Yeah, I could
I
see
mean,
it.
it matches the shit poor dialogue, but
Yeah, I mean that is one. Well, the dialogue is a product of its time and the age of the characters. You know, they're like
In some
just out of
respects.
high school when this starts. Like they're like early 20s or so, something like that. So they're just, and this is over a decade ago. So you know, it's it can
if
get
you
a
had
bit
put
cheesy.
it in at all, put in a little more. Like
Yeah.
this is random. You're walking around and they have this, minor exchange. It's like the constant flirtation. I mean, whatever.
Yeah,
It's
but
it doesn't drive the story at all. Like so much dialogue doesn't drive the story.
Yeah.
Like they could have been talking about the weird premonition they just got from a random totem laying
Well,
in the snow.
I
but
think
they're
in
talking
regards,
about like
talking
how
about
they can't wait to get it on.
yeah, yeah, that is
I
true.
could be talking
But,
about anything. Nothing reflects.
Yeah.
It's just speech, words. Got it.
Well, I think in regards to the totem, it's meant to be like, again, I do agree with you, and like in such a narratively driven game, having that kind of a glaring thing, is, it's a thing, but like mechanically,
Like, I feel like
it's a
it was meant-
collectible.
Like they started to write it, I think, to have it so that you would see this and maybe be warned and try to avoid one of these tragedies you see.
Yeah,
Like one of them I saw was just like it was just a bird. So that wasn't any big deal other than somebody else gets the choice to like shoot a bird or a can later. But
yeah,
most of it is like you or one of your friends dying and having something it's like they intended for something to be built in there so that you could avoid that path with a choice. Like the
Yeah.
whole point is you have these choices and they're going to be able to change things. But that's not actually happening. And what the totem's giving you isn't enough to know where that choice is going to happen. It's like they started to do something and didn't finish it with this game.
it's almost like they like give you a teaser of what could possibly happen. Oh, because like looking back at like once you go through the game and know more what the choices actually are, you can look at the totems and say, oh, that's where this one comes into play. You know, this is what could have happened if this had gone badly, or this is what could have. This is whatever it is. Although also on the topic of the totems, one thing that they did add in the remake is there's an entirely new type of totem, and that's the thing is the totems actually have different types like loss, fortune, whatever based on what it's showing you. They actually added an entirely new category of totem called the hunger totems. And what's interesting about those is those are from the perspective of Hannah. They're not from the perspective of anyone you're playing. They're from the perspective of Hannah. And so to kind of get a little bit back into the story, we're going to jump over bunches of this to kind of get to the highlights. After everyone's in the cabin and everything, there's starting to be these really kind of weird events going on. And eventually you find this, like there's, one of the most brutal scenes is Josh, Ashley, and what's the other guy's name? With the faux hawk.
Chris or Mike?
Chris, yes.
Chris.
Yeah, Josh, Chris, and Ashley are at the cabin. They do a Ouija board, get freaked out, and they end up finding this, like, Chris and Ashley, Josh storms off somewhere, Chris and Ashley find the secret room and everything and like that. And eventually they get knocked out by this mysterious, killer. Looks like almost like a Jason ripoff, with a, like, weird mangled clown mask looking thing. They get knocked out. And when they wake up, Josh and Ashley are strapped to these boards, and there's this giant horizontal circular saw on this giant motor that's on a track to one of both of them. And this voice comes up and says, "Chris, you have a choice. You have to choose which one of them dies." And this is one of the choices that, again, doesn't matter. So they make it seem like it's like, oh, like, which, like, is there going to be some way of tricking this out or anything like so both of them could survive? No. No matter what you do, Josh apparently dies. Oh, it doesn't matter which way you...
Bye, Josh.
Yeah. It doesn't matter which way you turn the crank or anything like that. The saw goes onto the track towards Josh and cuts him in half. Very graphically. And yeah, it was... It gets brutal, like, pretty quick. And also, I think it actually happens before that. Mike and... what is her name? Not Emily. The blonde one. What is it? Jessica.
Oh.
Yeah. Mike and
Sam's
Jessica.
blonde too.
What's it? Oh, yeah. Sam's taking a bath for most of the game. Like literally, she's in the bath for like 4 hours. Just what all of this.
She's
The
trying
rest
to
of
take a bath before the boilers started, before the fire started. Like, she wants that bath bad, man.
yeah.
He's gonna get
She's
all
gonna get out
pruny.
into
Her
the
fingers.
freezing cold. No, I'm not going to help you start the fire because I'm taking a bath
Yeah.
so I can get out into the freezing cold and freeze my tits off. Like,
Yeah.
You know how much I paid for this
go
bath
help him start
bomb?
the fire.
I paid so much for this bath bomb. I'm getting my money's worth.
Yeah, pretty much. And God bless that towel. Anyway, meanwhile, Mike and Jess are out in the cabin. They want to, get it on. And Jess ends up like by the front door, to her back to the front door. And all of a sudden this just gets yanked by the head, just pulled through the window in the front door and just disappears. And there's like, that's like one of the first instances where it's like, oh, shit's going down. And trying to figure out, it's like, what's happening now? And then you get the whole killer aspect back at the main cabin and everything. And it just escalates from there. And at first, of course, what I really appreciate about this game is they do turn it on its head to a certain degree, because it misdirects you to thinking that this killer in the cabin is responsible for all of this. He apparently has killed Josh. They think that he did something to Jess, and you can probably tell by the words that I'm using that that is not the case. They find out eventually that Josh is having a mental episode, and he's portraying the killer. So his one thing that a couple of the little collectibles you can find shows that his parents were in the movie industry. They like specifically special effects. So they show a little bit of a flashback of Josh making a fake body out of like pig intestines and stuff like that, and putting his head through the little board to make it look like he was there. But he was entirely safe. It was rigged to always, no matter what, go towards Josh, so Ashley would be safe. There's another instance, which this one does play a big role later on. It's one of the few choices that really determines who lives and who dies. Chris and Ashley are strapped to these two chairs, and there's these giant circular saws descending towards them. And there's a gun on the table. A voice comes up and says, "Chris, okay, you have a choice. You can either shoot Ashley, shoot yourself, or you both die." And the choice that you make there determines whether or not Chris lives later on in the game. If you choose to have Chris shoot Ashley, she later on, another little spoiler, the gun is fake. Again, because Josh is Josh has this, the reason he's doing all of this is to create some kind, he even foreshadows it earlier on in the game. He's creating these dire situations in order to bring Chris and Ashley together through this
Yeah.
trauma.
It was such a weird thing to say, too. There
Yeah.
were so many weird things. Well, Chris alluded to the movie making thing by finding costumes in the basement
Yep.
and then pranking them. But yeah, like he was trying to get Chris to get with Ashley from as soon as when they were first trying to even get into the cabin.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, it was just like, he was telling Sam, I think, like, it's like they need some traumatic event to drive them together.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, this guy's not okay. That's
Yeah.
not how you get your friends set
Yeah.
up with each other. Like,
I mean, you do find out later on that
that's a little
Josh is
toxic, dude.
is literally off his meds and is having like a mental breakdown because this is the 1-year anniversary of his sisters either disappearing or dying. They don't know.
But aren't they alluding to, though, that it's some kind of Wendigo situation, like a Native American
Potentially.
curse?
Yeah, there is that implication as well. And that's the other big twist is, the killer is actually Josh and the real threat is the Wendigos. So these mystical Native American creatures of the mountain are just terrorizing the mountain. And
So Sasquatches, but not blurry.
yeah, and a lot faster and just creepy as hell. So that's the real threat you find out in this game is it's these Wendigos, and you find out that there's like potentially dozens of Wendigos on this mountain that were so the mythology goes in the game that anyone that has to resort to cannibalism will become a Wendigo. And decades ago, there were these miners who were trapped in the mines on this mountain. And about a dozen of them, I think there was like 40 something to begin with, and only about a dozen of them survived. They had to resort to eating their dead comrades in order to survive. So all of these people ended up becoming Wendigos. And you find out later on that Hannah also became a Wendigo. She didn't die in the fall. She actually survived in the mines and originally had buried Beth, but had no food, did have water from, condensation from the caves and everything like that, but had no food. So she actually dug up Beth, ate her, and became a Wendigo. So she's kind of like the primary one. I think because she's the youngest one, that's one of the reasons why she's
the
seems to be
Wendigo
the
next
strongest. What was that?
She became the Wendigo next door.
Sitcom right there.
Wendigo.
But I think like they portray Hannah as the most like the more powerful of Wendigos. I think it's because she's the youngest one, not just in actual age, but in like recency. Because she's only been a Wendigo for like a year, while everyone else has been a Wendigo for multiple decades.
Maybe if I wrote the game, it would be so that the land was being reclaimed because her family now owned the land.
Yeah.
And there was talk in the game of there being a lot of protests and problem because the native population were angry that the Washington family would not sell them back the land.
Yeah. I mean, they don't really explain
They
it.
got her. It's their land again.
Yeah. I mean, they don't really explain, but they seem to have her as like the alpha Wendigo. But yeah, eventually, it's like, again, a lot of the choices that you have to make in this game really affect like who lives and who dies. And some of them seem relatively innocuous and have massive repercussions. Like a couple of the choices, like with Ashley, when everyone's going through these caves to get to another area on the map and everything. Ashley thinks that she hears voices from a different location in the caves than everyone else just went. And if you go that direction and you open up a hatch that the voices seem to come from, a Wendigo will come out and just rip her face off, like literally just tear her head off. Because a little bit of foreshadowing, you can get a journal earlier on, and one of the elements that says in the journal is that they are able to mimic voices. So if you're not paying attention, you just kind of gloss over that. You know, the like honestly, if I heard another set of voices that I recognize from a different set of part of the maze or part of the caves, if it were my choice, I probably would go try and find out what happened. Oh, but knowing that little bit of information that they can mimic voices, it's like, okay, that might affect that change or might affect that choice. Another one that I was talking about earlier.
Yeah, they weren't D&D nerds. Their first instinct was, it's a mimic.
Yeah, everything's a mimic. But one of the choices that I was talking about earlier with Chris and Ashley, if Chris chooses to shoot Ashley, even though the gun is fake and it doesn't actually do anything, Ashley remembers that later on. And there's a situation where Chris is running away from a Wendigo to try to get back into the cabin, and Ashley's the closest one to the door to open it. And this is another one of like a kind of a subtle change, but it does kind of affect the personality of the character as we perceive it. In the original, she remembers that and willfully on purpose does not open the door, so Chris could die. In the remake, it's less of a purposeful thing and more of just a hesitation because of her memory of what Chris did to her. So it changes the personality of the character in that moment a little bit. So that she's not being super malicious, but it still ends up with the same result. She doesn't open the door in time. Chris ends up getting his head ripped off. And
good job, matchmaking, Josh.
Yeah.
Nailed it, buddy.
So, and there are multiple choices in this game where stuff like that can happen. But like, again, playing through it and actually understanding like, okay, where are the choices that actually matter? That's kind of a thing. Cause like, Mike and Sam, like everyone, all the characters have a certain points in the story where they can die. And only a limited number of times in that story that they can die. I think the most is actually Emily. I think there are multiple times, like around 5 or 6 times in the story where she could die. Including one where she gets basically crushed in half by a giant rock grinder. That one's pretty brutal. Although getting like her normal animation for getting killed by the Wendigo is that the thing has fingernails that are about 2.5 inches long, and the Wendigo just takes the fingernails and just jams them both directly into her eyes. That one's a little brutal too, but
what a Disney movie!
Yeah, right. Yeah, if Disney was I don't know any. You know more
Run by the Manson family. Yeah, that's
what the effect I was trying to go for.
There, I got you.
Yeah, thanks. But yeah, like Mike and Sam, the only time that they can die in the story is at the very end. So they're entirely safe. Like their choices basically don't matter throughout the entire game until the very end, at least in regards to their survival.
You know, and at least that goes against your standard horror movie trope, because if the bathtub would seem like a surefire way to get killed quick.
Yeah. And they almost get to that point because, Sam, I don't even remember, I don't remember why. I think she's just done with the bath and goes out and her clothes are missing. So she has to go through the cabin, the lodge in a towel. And again, that towel,
and that was something toward the beginning that I saw, because she picked up a totem and had a premonition and was in the towel and being obviously like chased by something trying to kill her. I'm like, okay, so bitch, don't take the bath. Like, if it were up to me, she would have not taken the bath. That would have been an obvious giveaway. I should not be hanging around in a towel at any point. and maybe this horrible future won't happen. But
it's meant for the player, not for the characters. which I'm sure they're with a little. Okay, people who
We're
aren't
playing from their point of view.
people who are not watching the live stream, you should come to the live stream. You should watch this video just for September's reaction right then. It was priceless. Anyway, but yeah, that's again that's the big like the kind of the overarching story is like with them trying to survive the night, trying to survive until dawn. Go figure. From the Wendigos and stuff like that.
Because everybody catches a shuttle to a broken gate they have to climb over to a ski resort that's privately owned in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was another right at the beginning. Like, what in the hell? What she arrived on like a bus, a little mini bus that took off. Oh, gate's broken. Have to climb it. Like,
Yeah, that should have been a red flag. Yeah.
Like none of them drove there. There's apparently a shuttle.
Yeah, there's a cable car that takes them to the lodge.
Well, no, they take the cable car up to the lodge, yeah, but to the resort at all, to Black Pines or whatever it's called. Like,
yeah, Blackwood Pines, I
they
think.
show what's her name. Who arrives? Who's the girl that arrives first? Well, they show arriving first.
Sam.
Jess was already there. Yeah, when they show Sam's arrival, she arrives on like a little bus, like that just leaves. Like, okay, that was weird at night.
Yeah.
There's a note on the gate. It's broken. Climb over. Who?
Okay.
That's the weirdest Uber I've ever seen.
I love how analytical sometimes you get with these story games. There's
Part
like
of the fun, though, kind of
gonna
picking some of this stuff apart.
Tell a story, like, yeah. I'm a continuity nerd.
Yeah.
I'll own that.
I
Yeah.
love that they got the Wendigo myth correct and other stuff that I enjoy. Supernatural, one of them. But yeah, I mean, the myth itself is basically they ate their dead, and in doing so, like kind of like soiled their soul and turned into those type of creatures and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So to kind of stick to that is of course really cool, as well as, I mean, if you're gonna go all out and be graphic and like show these things, yeah, lay it on thick. Like don't pull back. Like if you're gonna give them 2-foot fingernails that are like, at that point, mini katanas, go for broke. You might as well. And I know, Sean, you and I talked a little bit previously, but this has been made into a movie that's going to come out this year.
Yeah. And I mean, it's kind of interesting because the game plays almost like an interactive movie to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
I feel like it has better potential as a movie than it did as a game.
To a certain degree, yeah. I mean, and like it also depends on, like, I would imagine that they would probably go with the choices that gets everyone survives, if I had to guess. Although it would be interesting to see like which ones if they went differently in the movie, like what choices they would make differently. But yeah, it plays like an interactive movie to a degree. But yeah, like to kind of finish up, like some of the differences between the original and the remake that really have kind of come up. Because overall, the remake is actually considered worse than the original, and some of the key factors is the music, the soundtrack for it. They didn't want to or weren't able to get the same composer for the original to do the remake, so the music is very different. It's much more subdued rather than tension building to a degree. Like I was watching a video that had.
I thought the sound design was pretty good. Like,
well, specifically the soundtrack. There were some, like I was watching a video earlier that showed some of the big differences between like the sound design and everything like that. There are some subtle differences, Like there's one instance where Sam is walking through the forest. In the original, you could actually hear like the Wendigo screech off in the distance. You could hear the wind howling and everything like that. In the remake, it's almost entirely silent. Like you can hear her footsteps, and that's about it.
Huh.
So there's subtle things like that. The one of the biggest detractions, or what the differences between the original and the remake, was the opening song, which I interpret as, oh, they couldn't get the licensing anymore for that song, so they had to change it. That's how I interpret it. The person who the video I was watching, they're just like, why would they change this? Why would they go with this different song? It's like, because music licensing sucks.
Yes, it does.
That's how I interpret it. But it is what it is. Like I personally am very indifferent for that kind of stuff.
Without the comparison, I don't see these to be that big a deal.
Yeah. I mean, and that's another big thing, is if you are planning to play this on PC, it's like if you want to play this on PC, the only option you have is the remake. You can't play the original on PC still. So it's just like, if you're playing on PC, this is your only choice. These are the only options you have. This is the only instance of this game that you can experience. So if you haven't gone back to the original, that's another big complaint, is most of these complaints come from people who have played the original and wanted to come back to it in the remake. And it's like, me being someone who had never played the original, watching the remake, I had no problem with it. I thought it was really well done. Another big key complaint is the camera. Which in the original, there was a lot more fixed camera positions and everything like that. You were, to kind of pay homage to older games like Resident Evil and stuff like that. Frankly, I hate that. Take it out of everything. I cannot stand fixed camera angles like that. That's just me. I know there's a lot of people.
Yeah, making it like single shot, which is its own genre.
Yeah.
Is really bad to play in.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand it cinematically. Like, the point of doing it cinematically was to create that sense of tension, because you can't get a full view of what you're looking at or anything like that. I hate it. I personally can't stand it. I prefer the third person over the shoulder view that they have in the remake, because I actually want to be able to see what I'm doing. So
You're right.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you've already played the original Until Dawn, you're probably better off still sticking with it. There isn't really a whole lot more to the remake to really distinguish it. I mean, other than like the hunger totem, like they've changed the location of certain totems and stuff like that, and a couple little story elements and things like that. But overall, it doesn't really bring a whole lot of difference from the original. So if you've already played the original and you like the original, stick with that. If you're like me though, and you've never played the original and you want to experience it with with better graphics, with better frame rate and all that stuff, and you want to experience it on PC, the only option you have is the remake. So it's kind of a toss-up. Overall, I think it's still a very, very well done game, regardless of which version. I do really like that kind of twist to it, where you think it's the perceived killer or whatnot, and then it ends up being the Wendigo that's the real threat and everything. But I like where it turns those elements.
My husband brought me a beer. I distracted.
Yeah, because I want one.
Hey, important distraction.
Yeah, I wish I want beer. I just have milk. It's not nearly as good. Anyway, well, it's probably better for me, but
Unless it was from a drunk cow.
Maybe. But yeah, overall, I still think these games are pretty good. And again, with it being such a very narrative-driven game, it's broken up into chapters. I mean, the whole game, like the video that I watched for reference material, the total thing is 6 hours. So even if you're trying to collect everything, get every nook and cranny, it's probably around like 10 to 12 hour gameplay. So it's not super long to begin with. And with it being so narrative driven and already being broken up into chapters, there's a lot of off ramps for the part-time gamer aspect of it. You can play a chapter, play even a segment of a chapter, get to a certain point, put it down, come back, that kind of thing. Oh, so
Yeah, there's that.
yeah.
I didn't think it was as good as you think it is, but
Well, again, it has its elements.
fine.
And also, it is still a product of its
it's
time.
Fine.
Also,
It's fine.
take it from the perspective of this
I
being
wouldn't pay
10 years.
$59.95.
Well, no, I
$59.99
yeah.
right now.
Yeah,
Right.
I think
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what.
I wouldn't pay $60.
If you think it's really
for
worth
this.
it.
I didn't find it compelling enough. I could feel that the choices weren't as important as I would want
Yeah.
from an A game like this. There wasn't enough to figure out. Yeah, I don't know. Just it was kind of lackluster for me in general. Like, not compelling. Not the story wasn't as compelling as it could be. Maybe that was dialogue, but definitely not feeling like my choices were as impactful as they could be. Like,
Yeah.
it felt railroaded, and the story beats weren't very well paced.
Yeah, that also was one thing about that I've heard about the original is when they were developing it, they actually had people connected to heart monitors so that they could actually time the scares and the jumps and the tension. So like when someone like they would raise their heart rate and then like when it started to go back down to a more mellow pace, that's when they would have the next scare and the next tension builder, and like they would just have this constant up and down, which they did
And that's a
change the
great
pacing.
And it's partly a me thing.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. I like psychological horror and trying to figure it out, and that suspense build, and that's my engagement with this type of game, which it's kind of in other media too. Jump scares. You've played those games. We played Five Nights, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't have that kind of reaction. I guess my trauma does me that disservice now. I don't jump scare. It's
Yeah.
not going to help to panic, so I don't. And so none of those little jump scares and this and that. I just I look and I keep moving forward.
Yeah.
The story elements and the psychological horror, those are the things that I would have wanted more from, and I feel like this had the potential for.
Yeah.
That's me.
I'd be inclined to
You
agree.
got your thing.
Oh, I mean, I do like again. It is a product of its time. This game did originally come out almost 10 years ago, so and it was one of the first.
You don't have to apologize, Sean. It just wasn't as good for me as it was for you.
Yeah, I mean, well, granted. Also, keep in mind, I've never actually played through the game. I've watched it a couple times, and I honestly, I kind of prefer it that way. Like I said, it's more of an interactive movie than a game for me. Oh, and
Yeah, the literally hit the right button, hit the triangle button at the right
Yeah.
time to do the high five choice. Ooh. I felt like it was those back in the 80s or early 90s, QuickTime movies, or
yeah,
where it was only a game and that you were hitting the button to get to the next cinematic.
yeah.
And if you missed it, you died. Like Dragon Quest.
There are some of the choices where that happens, where the QuickTime event is like, oh, if you fail this like twice, you die. Period. Oh,
Yeah.
like I mentioned, Emily jumping over the rock grinder. If you mess up that QuickTime event twice, she goes into it and gets crushed. Not fun. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Honestly, this is unless this is the kind of genre that you really like, I'd probably pass on this. Just watch the gameplay of it. There's lots of videos of full playthroughs where You could probably even be more specific as saying, "Oh, everyone dies," or "Oh, everyone lives." You know, and see how like there's a lot of information out there to find out like how brutally can this character die. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Like Theo, don't you think like it wouldn't have been better if it was worse? Like just go deeper toward B movie with it, with all the
Oh yeah,
tropes and all the tropes and the gore. They could have gone that direction and it would have been more fun.
oh yeah, and I think I mean not just this type of genre, but like horror kind of infused. I'm a huge fan of it's weird that deep down, as far as movies go, Scream is like my favorite horror franchise, which was always meant to be a satire of horror, and it's a cliche becomes a cliche for a reason, and this could have like leaned into it. I mean, it kind of did, but if you're gonna get the tropes so on the nose, I believe if you've got it, flaunt it.
yeah.
And just yeah, we did that. And I think it's better. I mean, not just but just like how the game's perceived, because now you have this. Okay, well, and as per usual, the remake wasn't as good as the original. Well, yeah, we hear that all the time.
Yeah.
But it's also a case of like, anytime something gets remade, there is always that risk, that chance of so much of what made the original or the first one so good being lost. And that's what happened a lot here. That's why I agree with you, to where if the tropes are going to be there, show it off.
Yeah.
Show it off. And
Don't take
lean
yourself so
into it to the
seriously.
point where, exactly, especially as a remake, like it would almost have been genius on their part to be so schlocky, going, we can't top what we did before. We can make fun of ourselves.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a thing. Like I said, it did kind of jumpstart Supermassive's kind of push for these kind of choices matters games with the dark pictures anthology, which they started, and then more recently the Quarry, which is I actually think the Quarry is great. Oh, I think it actually
I've been
does
hearing
have.
good stuff.
Yeah, it actually does have. It has more than one ending. Like you still kind of lead kind of to the same place to a degree, but there's a lot more choices that can happen within that. Oh, and it's still kind of the reason there's a reason that they refer to it as the spiritual successor to Until Dawn, because there's definitely some supernatural elements to it, which we won't get into because I don't want to spoil this game. But yeah, overall, as glowing of a review as I give it, honestly, just watch the video. Yeah. So
I mean, it's all subjective, like anything else. You either like it or you don't. And for me, the original is what it is for a reason.
yeah,
And it does play better as a movie. I'm kind of excited, and I really hope they haven't kind of numbed it down too much. Anytime you get adaptations, streamlined to where you kind of, once again, hey, here's in name only.
yeah,
Everything that made it what it is, yeah, we forgot that part. We left it back at the ranch. But here's what we got. Cool. So I'm kind of curious how the movie's going to turn out. The original was a trip. This one is definitely like, hey, we're back, and it's like, okay, it's kind of like that show up, and you're just like, oh yeah, we know you guys.
yeah.
Cool.
Well,
So
you put on some makeup, I can still recognize you though.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You've made that black eye look significantly more realistic, but other than that, all right. Oh, I think we're actually going to hold on to this this discussion topic for later because we're already at an hour or so. So just for like I mentioned at the top of the show, we're doing the order a little bit different. Normally we would be going to our water cooler talk next and having a single topic of discussion. But we're already at time, so there's a lot to dissect in that game, and so
Indeed.
that's going to be it for our show
Gotta
today.
get the hang of our timing for our new format.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this actually, for this very reason, was one of the reasons why I wanted to do still want to do water cooler talk, but have it at the end in case we're going over. It's just like, oh, we can save this for another time. All right. So yeah, we'll save that topic for another time. But everyone, yep, this is our new month. We're going to be doing Choices Matter, and our next game for next week is going to be Life is Strange, which does have, like, I've watched this gameplay as well. I have not played it myself, but there is some pretty significant choices to be made in it, and they do affect the ending quite a bit. Like, I've seen at least 2 different endings. I think in the original there is just the 2 endings, but yeah, this is another kind of fairly venerable series now, relatively speaking, and has a lot of sequels to it and a lot of interesting stories about it. But everyone, thank you for listening. If you like what you've heard and you'd like to help us out, a few ways you can do that are by giving us a review over on Apple Podcast. You can follow my Twitch and YouTube channels for the live recordings. We start Sunday nights starting at 9:15 Eastern Time for the live recordings. Or you can become one of our patrons over at patreon.com/ptgcast. If you'd like to contact us, you can with our email, parttimegamers.cast@gmail.com, or you can join our Discord channel, or I do have a contact page on our main website, which you can find that website and links to everything I just mentioned using the link bit.ly/CI Productions. I figured that's probably an easier way to do it than trying to spell caffeine induced. I literally have a note document that has caffeine that I can just copy and paste because I still mess up how to spell it. Not the best SEO, I know, but bit.ly/CI Productions to reach my website. Ember, where can people find you around the internet?
Oh, go to 9of12.com. That's NINEOF12.com. It'll point you to my projects.
And Theo, where can people find you?
In the corner doing unspeakable acts. No, just kidding.
Well, other than that.
They can find me on rabbitandredradio.com. We are kicking off our new season as well as a new format on this Thursday, which will be, it's funny. We are literally those people who it's like, be here at this time, and then we make people wait 20 minutes with dead air. So we're good like that. So if you get in there about like 8 p.m. Easternish, you're good.
Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah, time's a construct anyway.
Yeah, what is time? Anyways, everyone, until next time, we are the Part-Time Gamers clocking out.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.